Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. John Michael Salvato, your organic living and peak performance coach. You are watching Inner Alchemy, the science of spiritual living. With me today, my co-host, Reverend Robert Brzezinski, and of course, we've got Diana Kurekis with us, ready I'm not sure whether she's going to be able to join the conversation or not, whether she has her video camera yet or not. But welcome, Diana, just the same. And for all of you that are tuning in, or may tune in as the show gets rolling. We want to say right up front that this is an opportunity for us to have a conversation. This is not this is why we moved it back to Google Hangouts, because it's not a place where we just come up and preach at you for a half an hour. This is an ongoing conversation. This is a community participation event, and today we come together because we recognize that the presence that fulfills itself through love knows only giving. And love is not for receiving, it's for giving. And that's our topic today is forgiving. Forgiving love, forgiving peace, forgiving healing. It's the topic of forgiveness. And leaders are forgiving, and leaders are forgiving, with and without the space between them. And the topic kind of came up for me today. Personally, it was part of the curriculum, and it came up for me in a particularly powerful way in wake of what we've been talking about all week long with the tragedy in Orlando, the violence in Orlando last weekend, and I had to really take a hard look at my response, at my feelings. We talked a couple days ago about how it's been very difficult to kind of stay on an even keel throughout the day as that roller coaster of emotions just keeps emerging. And I personally don't believe in trying to stop emotions when they come to the surface. And so there have been times when grief has just overtaken the moment, and there have been times when anger took its place, and times when frustration took its place, and resolution to take action took its place. And through all of that, I stopped and said, where is the where does forgiveness come in? When do I get to have forgiveness emerge in place of the anger, in place of the frustration? And and I didn't have an answer. And as we were sitting there last night having a conversation with our good friend who lives here in the condo with us upstairs, we were having dinner, and I said, I'm really working on this concept of forgiveness in my life. And I have to say that as I started watching the news overseas, reading the media from overseas, because I find that their news and their media outlets have a tendency to be a little bit less skewed. And they were starting to interview, and I was watching a Brazilian television network because we're thinking about expatriating there, and I was watching this network and saw them interviewing some of the people that were not getting interviewed on American television, and one of the things that kept coming up was people talking about that there were multiple shooters, people talking about how the wife of the shooter, according to the official narrative, was told by the authorities not to discuss her ex-husband's sexual orientation, and not to discuss that she believed and all of his friends believed that he was gay. And so in that discussion, I said, while we were eating dinner, I said, it's absolutely possible, and it's not something that I've wanted to entertain, but it's within the realm of possibilities that this man was manipulated too, that his insecurity, his maybe internal homophobia, whatever the issues might have been, may have been manipulated to push him to do what he did. If in fact he did what he did according to the official narrative, if in fact he acted alone, none of which I believe. But I said, so in that moment, when we consider that it is a possibility, because we don't have the answers, what can we do except to open our hearts to be forgiving, to open our hearts to say, in the unlimited realm of possibilities, I am not the other person. So I do not know what was going through the other person's mind, no matter what circumstances we're talking about now. And that's where that act of forgiveness, of being for giving love, for bringing that presence that we believe makes us one to the other person. It's really what I call the great namaste. Because I can't say when I go to yoga class namaste and bow to that other person who is sharing in yoga and say the sacred spark within me bows to the sacred spark within you, and then look at the shooter in Orlando and refuse to recognize that same sacred spark. I can't say namaste to every one of you and then look at the hate mongers that sit on Capitol Hill who are preaching intolerance and violence and allowing these assault rifles to be sold, and refuse to say the sacred spark within me bows to the sacred spark within you. And more than that, if I don't recognize that sacred spark, then I'm part of the problem. So that's what we're talking about today. You know, I love Fridays because Fridays we get to take this out of the realm of just entrepreneurial endeavors, although this certainly applies to our entrepreneurial endeavors, because what we bring to the marketplace is the whole deal. It's all of who we are. And so if we aren't that person who is forgiving, then we're not servant leaders. Because servant leaders recognize that a lack of forgiveness is the prison cell that we put ourselves in when the key to freedom is always in our back pocket. And so I want to put that out there as the framework for today, and I certainly don't want to sound in any way like some magnanimous sage who has found the key to forgiving what happened in Orlando, because I would be a liar if I told you that it doesn't still tear me up inside, that there's not a lump in my throat discussing it, and that I won't struggle for, you know, who knows how much longer to find some kind of peace and forgiveness there. But it's a process that I'm committed to working on, because no one else is going to free me from these emotions, from this pain, from this anger and frustration except me. No one else has the key. No one else can have the key. And thank goodness for that. So guys, jump in, share with us your wisdom. Robert, welcome back. I didn't get a chance to say that when we started recording. Welcome back. You have been certainly missed, and I think everybody here will agree that your wisdom has been you know, the absence of your wisdom has been felt while you were gone. But we understand that some great things are happening in your life.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful. The way you said, the absence of my wisdom has been felt, which actually means that my wisdom has been felt even beyond the point where my physical body, which wasn't my physical body, which is really just my virtual body, was felt. This is good. I like how that works. And because that's the essence of what we talk about, right? We are all one. My physical, virtual, visual presence didn't need to be in this room for this room to feel the wisdom that is not really my wisdom, the wisdom that is of the one. And that's the beauty of it. That's why I love hanging out here on Friday mornings. And mostly because, John Michael, you get right into it. You don't dance around the topics. You don't look at, oh, how do I position this to make it acceptable to people? Or you're being real. You're being authentic in sharing what I know is it's a topic that's going to touch you on an emotional level much so more than I. As a straight white guy, I don't really even like the word straight, but that's what most people understand. I feel a sense of compassion for those in the club, for those that related to people in the club, for the shooter or shooter, for the police, for the first responders. I heard an amazing story of the hospital and what happens after an experience like this, and how those people are impacted and how those people are affected. In what you were sharing, it starts by opening our hearts to giving more love. And I heard a perspective recently And some watching this may not recognize there is a movement in this country that's called A World That Works for Everyone. And it's grown from the Centers for Spiritual Living, but it's been influenced by other people's work, Sharif Abdullah's work, his great book, A World That Works for All. It's being influenced in a lot of ways. And I think that while that is my particular organization's way of trying to say it, A World That Works for Everyone, I think there's a lot of groups and a lot of organizations and a lot of people all over this planet that hold to those same ideals. People all over this planet that are horrified by the events that happened at Pulse, horrified by the events that happened earlier in that day in a fatal one-on-one shooting, horrified by the events that happened the next day and will happen tomorrow, really, and are probably happening right now. Horrified by that. And yet, that consciousness, that number of people, that number of organizations that are believing we can create a world that works for everyone, in some ways is quickening this. So we have to have these experiences, because what I see happening is these experiences support us in dismantling the sense of separation. Let's think about it. Whether that young man was alone, whether he was an American radicalized to a foreign cultural belief system, whatever the story and the background behind it, how much pain would any human being have to be in to walk into a place of celebration or a place of worship or a place of learning, or a place of whatever, and commit those kinds of acts? That's got to be a lot of pain to deal with. And whether it's because he suppressed his own sexuality and was unwilling to admit and embrace who he was as an authentic being, or that's all different forms of separation from the one. Not embracing the self, not embracing his own desires, all forms of separation. How much pain does it take to get to a point where you buy a gun and then unload it on a room full of people you do or don't know? I feel as much pain for that young man as I do for those that were at the other end, that were celebrating and left this planet that night and lost their lives that night. I feel as much pain for the parents and the people that in many ways, in this case specifically, are having a really tough time coming to grips. Not so much that their children are dead, but that their children were in a gay nightclub. So many levels of pain that I have to believe are leading us to one point, and that's a return to wholeness. That's a return to the healing. That's a healing and a return to recognizing that we are all in this thing together. We're all in this love together. We're all in this world together. So, yes, it sucks. Man, it really sucked to wake up Sunday morning and hear that news. And it's not, quote, my community. And yet it is my community because it was part of me. I was in the shooter, and I was in those that didn't make it through the night.
And those who are still struggling.
And those that are still struggling, and those that are still mourning. So the only thing we can do, I believe, in a time like this, is hold our tongue and share our hearts. Not make anyone wrong, because we don't know. Not repeat the news, because they don't know. Not even watch the news. But to feel from the heart and compassionately say, I don't know why, but I know something magnificent must be happening here. And I'm going to continue to be in that place of loving everyone around me and loving even those that I got a tough time loving. Because there's got to be God in there somewhere too.
Right on. You know, I so appreciate your perspective and your compassion and wisdom as always. You know, found myself on Monday night at at a gathering, a candlelight vigil that we were part of organizing here in Harrisburg, and it was the community's response. It was an attempt throughout the country and throughout the world for people to come together and mobilize different segments of our community. When I say different segments of our community, I don't mean the LGBTQ or LGBTQI now. They keep adding initials pretty soon. That's just going to be the alphabet community.
Wait a minute. What does I stand for?
Intersexed. I learned that on Monday night.
Okay.
And,
totally new to me too.
And because of one of the persons who got up there and spoke that night, I do feel compelled to add that I always considered them to be part of the queue, but it was explained to me that they aren't questioning, that they are quite clear, and so LGBTQI now. But if I forget the I, and you're watching this, just know that you're in my heart. It's just easier to say LGBTQ. It took me a long time to get the Q on there, so I just have to tell you though, that when I say our community, I mean, and this is coming from somebody who, I was born in Philadelphia. I was actually born outside of Pittsburgh. We moved to Philadelphia when I was a couple weeks old. That was home for me. I grew up until I was 11 in Philadelphia. Moved to Central Florida and grew up in Central Florida. So coming to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which I always expected when I was a kid was a thriving metropolis that drew the best from Pittsburgh and the best from Philadelphia, and I couldn't have possibly been more wrong. They call this part of central Pennsylvania, Pennsyltucky, for a reason. I've never felt a part of this community. I never identified with Harrisburg. I never had any affection for Harrisburg other than the view of the river outside my front window. And now, as a result of Monday, that oneness that you're talking about became very real for me. That movement, that acceleration of singularity happened when I set foot in that area just a block away from the house where the vigil took place. And for the first time in my life, I mean, there were 300 or 400 people in this little town who came together. And when I say my community, I don't just mean the LGBTQ community. I mean the straight community, our allies, the equality movement, the trans movement, people for progressive America, Democrats, Republicans. There were people that were there because their hearts were touched by this tragedy. And we came together as one community. There was a beautiful, amazing Muslim woman who got up and spoke. Ms. Malik, shared her heart and shared her grief and said that during this time of Ramadan, for her that taking one life was like taking the lives of all of humanity since the beginning of time. That this is in violation of their beliefs. There was a lesbian Muslim who got up and spoke. There were people who got up and for that period of an hour and a half, while yes, the majority of people who got up and spoke were lesbian, gay, transgender, bi, questioning, and intersex persons, our governor spoke and his wife. We had representatives there who were and were not gay. We had people from within the community who just said we have to do something to make this world a safer place. And for that hour and a half, we weren't us and them. We were just us. And we saw that happening all around the country, all around the world, and it's inauthentic if we're going to say that we're us, that we're going to come together and be one, and as you said, not feel like we have to be one with the shooter, because we may not have been physically the shooter, but we have all been in the place where we've allowed a slur to take place in our presence and said nothing. We've all been part of discrimination, maybe not LGBT discrimination, but discrimination in some part. We created the culture that created the pain that led that man to do what he may have done, and we don't know that yet, and so we're not in a position to judge.
Right. We've all felt pain at some point. We've all felt that separation at some point. And we've all done things to varying degrees that I don't want to admit in a public forum on a recorded video that could live forever. I've done things that because of that sense of feeling separate, because of that sense of feeling isolated and alone and not part of the one. That's what drives us to those types of horrendous acts. It's when you add the I, thank you, intersexed. Now I got some research to do, and I realized we forget my favorite letter in the soup, which is F, because I'm an F. I'm a friend or an ally. I have an ally button around here somewhere, right? Because it is about respecting and honoring that you are a divine expression of this thing called life, and so your choices and your desires and who you choose to associate and how you choose to express are absolutely valid. So it's right. It sucks that we have to learn this way. It really does. That it takes something like this one more time for us to finally, as a culture, stand up. I was in a visioning session this morning with one of my private coaching clients, and one of the lines that came through was, shifting a culture is a slow and tedious and messy process. Let's face it, folks, humans are messy. We make shit everywhere we go. We get messy. But that is in itself the process of shifting a culture. Now, bringing forth a new paradigm can seem a lot more exciting and flexible and time and beyond, outside of the realm of time. It can just happen. In the midst of this, I saw a piece yesterday, Mexico, legal. It has made same-sex marriage legal across the entire country. Today is a day of celebration for our community, our oneness community. So I love what you're saying. Let's get how many letters can we get into this thing? LBGTQIF, allies, Democrats, Republicans, Greens. How many people can we get into our community? I'm going to come back to what I said. We're all in this thing together. We're all in this love together. How do I love more? How do I give more of the love that's within me to those closest to me and still have some for those that I can't understand? I can't understand. Logically, I get what could have happened, and I can't possibly understand what was in that young man's mind. But I have to love him anyway somehow. Because if I don't, I'm just perpetuating the separation. And this is a world of unity, and I'm in the job of seeing and sharing and expressing that unity.
You bet. Ito, we haven't heard from you today. I don't think Diana has a camera. So Diana, I just love and appreciate that you're here with us today. But Ito, what were your thoughts as we were talking about forgiveness and how leaders are forgiving, especially in light of some of the conversations we've had over the last couple days, leading up sort of to this part of the curriculum?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I have a little 3-year-old here asking me to do things on his iPad to keep him quiet. It's interesting listening to the hangout today, because what I see in it is there's separation everywhere. I mean, families are separated. Business colleagues are separated, husbands and wives are separated from each other. There's just this thing that's going on around the whole world, that people are happy to separate themselves and put themselves into little niches and put themselves into, I mean, looking at America now and the voting system of Democrat and Republican, and they're just separating themselves all over the place. 1 second. No. Okay, my little boy is not too happy with me, but like was brought out today. Love is what brings us all together. I mean, no matter what anyone's belief is, in a higher power, in God, in whatever it might be, the only solution is love. From inside each and every one of us, we cannot function by separating ourselves from other people and from separating ourselves into little groups and into communities. When, as Robert was saying, to add all the letters onto the LG, I can't even say it now. And you were saying it can become an alphabet eventually, and that's what it should be. That's how we as humans survive. That's what separates us from the animal world. And even then, the animal world, they live in groups together because they do need each other. They can't be separated, and to survive as one. And we can learn a lot from the animal community, because the world is going down a sorry road by separating themselves from each other, from the higher power, from ourselves. And that's what I'm getting from all the conversation that's going on today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ita. And never worry about that little one, because that little one's part of us too. He's part of this community, and you know, I think everybody here understands that. I want to share something with you guys. You know, a little maybe lighter-hearted demonstration of how this oneness can happen. And you know, when we started this 200-day process, which is now on day 35, you know, and probably, since I'm not so great at math, the 35 is what, 7 weeks, and 7 plus 14, so we're at around roughly 50 days, you know, into this ballpark figure, 50 days of real days that have passed. So about 2 months of journeying together. And when we started the process, I didn't have access to the app that allowed me to reach out and connect to people on Snapchat via interest levels. And I wanted to do a sort of an experiment. And that experiment has been that for the last, it was about you know, 35, 40 days in, that I decided I was going to start using Snapchat. I was going to get outside my comfort zone, just as I've been challenging you. And I was going to enter Snapchat in the spirituality category. And I was just going to share something every day about our essential oneness, and about unity in purpose, and unity in spirit, and just, you know, being recognizing that our thoughts create our experiences. So 30 days ago, I'd say maybe 35 days ago now, I started using the app. That actually was how I met Anthony Polanco, our brother, who was on the show recently, who hopefully will join us again soon. But I want to show you what happens when you commit your heart, when you open your heart and become vulnerable and become uncomfortable, because I didn't know from Snapchat, the majority of people that are on Snapchat are half my age, and they are, you know, this adorable, beautiful, gorgeous group of young people who are just sharing themselves. And one of my 3 friends who I lost on Sunday, and I really became close. I know we've known one another for about a year, but when I got on Snapchat, he was on Snapchat, and let me tell you, this young man, you know, captured my heart, and we became closer in 30 days than we had in the previous year, making his death, excuse me, really palpable for me. Really, just there's a loss when I go on Snapchat in the morning, and there's not a message from my Stanley on there, because he just made me smile every single morning. And I want to show you what this looks like when it demonstrates in our lives, in terms of the reach, the effect that you and I can have by simply being out there and being love for other people. Because now, Anthony, I'm going to show you. I'm going to go one step further. First, I'm going to show you what an amazing individual like Anthony Polanco can accomplish. Now, they just changed something on Snapchat. I'm hoping it'll still be on there. But you know, you guys heard from Anthony a couple weeks ago. on the show, and they moved it. Bummer. All right, now here we go. So I'm going to hold the camera close enough so that you can see on Ghost on Ghost Chat or whatever this is called. What is it called? It's called anyway. We'll figure out what it's called in a second. There you have in the number 1 position. There's Anthony Polanco with 3,000 what they call kudos, 3,000 people who've liked and connected with him on Snapchat. But what and I don't know how long Anthony's been on, but I know it couldn't be too long because Snapchat's not been around that long. But in 3.5, 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks now, I want to share with you what happens when you simply bring love to the conversation, to the transaction. There's my post under the spirituality category, and there's 919 kudos. 134 people have used the app to download my Ghost Code. Ghost Code, that's what it's called. And I share that with you because I want you guys to know that if I could do that, making between 1 and 3 little snaps a day, just to encourage people, just to say I'm here with you, and I believe in you. And if nobody else has told you that you're fantastic, I'm going to tell you today. We have 900 people who've said right on. I'm with you in this process. So if we could be, that a current runs down the stream in front of the river in front of my house, but if I throw a rock in that current, those ripples change the entire river, to paraphrase an old Buddhist expression and an old Native American expression. And so that's what we're doing with Snapchat. We're the rock that just changes the entire river. But what's important to understand, and the reason forgiveness is so critical, is that I think Muhammad Ali said it better. You might be a stream, you might be a creek, you might be an ocean, you might be a sea, you might be a river, but at the end of the day, we're all made up of water. And that's why forgiveness is the only option. It's the only real way to get through this experience of life. It's the only way to really connect with one another, whether connecting is building relationships with your customers or establishing better relationships with the people in your family, your home, your community, and your world. It comes by making the decision that I am for peace, I am for love, I am for healing, I am for giving. And then it starts within ourselves. I have to forgive me for all the times that I've been intolerant, for all the times that I've drawn that line in the sand between me and Republicards. That expression in and of itself is a line of demarcation that I've made a commitment, as much as it's going to kill me, that I'm not going to use it. No matter how much I think it's deserved by people like Donald Trump, I have to, if I don't recognize that there is an essential unity between me and Donald Trump, then pretending that there's a unity between me and anybody else is bullshit. And that sucks. Because it's entertaining. It sucks because it gets things done. It raises people's awareness. It gives me that one other place to connect with people who are like-minded. But you know what? There's lots of other places to connect with people who are like-minded. I'm tired of the violence in my world. I'm tired. I've buried 108 friends with AIDS who didn't even reach the age of 40 or 50. I'm tired of that. I'm tired now of seeing another entire generation of friends in the LGBTQI community, in the Latino community, decimated by violence and hatred. I'm tired of watching our young men and women go to war, to fight a war for control of oil. I'm tired of lots of things, but being tired isn't enough. Prayer isn't enough. I have to be willing to take action, and that action has to start with me, or it doesn't, or it's all bullshit. And so that's the message I want to bring to you, is that forgiveness has to be forgiveness, period. We don't just forgive a single person. We might think that we're forgiving a single person, but forgiveness is something we do for ourselves. And if we truly do it for ourselves, it means we have to let go of that thing within ourselves. So spend 30 days forgiving, and you'll change a lot of the fucked up things in your experience of life. Because they're things that you've done that keep manifesting and mirroring in your experiences. That's my commitment. That's all I know how to do, because I don't know what else I can do in the face of what happened last week. So I'm going to work for the next 30 days harder on me than I've ever worked in my entire life, because I've never felt like this in my entire life. And I have to start where I know.
Yeah.
So I encourage you guys to do that. I also encourage you, before I ask Robert to share with us a mind treatment to bring up from within us that power of forgiveness, that experience of oneness that comes from recognizing that all is right in our world when we recognize our oneness with that presence that we all share. I encourage you guys, if you haven't done so already, to go to zenkondo.com, ZenKondo, and on the very first post on that, or it's actually the second post on the page, the first post is a welcome. The second post on that page, the most recent post, is a blog article I wrote about Orlando. And if you scroll down, you don't have to read the blog article if you're not inclined, but if you scroll down a bit, there's a video, a song on there that these two incredible young people wrote, people who lost so many of their friends. I lost 3, and we haven't heard from 4 others. And they may very well be in the hospital right now. But these young people, these 2 young men, lost many friends in Orlando, and yet they found within themselves that presence, that holiness, that connection to one, to share what I think is one of the most powerful, prophetic, inspired pieces of expressions of what God is for the world around them, and it's called "Feel My Pulse." And please take the time as we end up today. I was trying to figure out how to share it on Google Plus, and nothing. Every time I tried to share it, it would cause it to crash. Maybe my computer's not strong enough. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. But just go to zenkondo.com, watch that video, and allow those words to wash over you, and maybe inspire you for the next 30 days to work a little bit more on you. I mean, that's what we're doing every day through this 200-day Mind Shift Mastery. But let's get uncomfortable. Let's get a little bit more uncomfortable the next 30 days and see what we can do for this world around us. Robert, would you do us the honor of taking us into a quiet space and centering our thoughts as we say goodbye?
Absolutely. I invite you into an experience of oneness right now. As I move into a place of knowing one power, one presence, one infinite intelligence. And I know it by many, 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 many names. Some call it Buddha or Brahma, Allah, Vishnu, Kuan Yin, Source Energy, God, Divine Light, Buddha, Allah, Brahma, all part of the one, all various names and forms and expressions of the power, the presence, the intelligence that operates as all of life, operates as every word, every expression. I know this power moving through and as my life. And I know that same truth of each one within sound of this vibration of these words. Each one part of the one, each one a divine emanation of the one, each one a unique, magnificent, awe-inspiring expression of that one love. That one love. And so what I know is that each one here ventures off into the rest of this day, the rest of this week, until a connection created again throughout it all. That each one I know as uplifted, inspired, and yes, protected by the strong arms of God. That there is something magnificent happening here. Something that makes me shout, oh my gosh, what a magnificent day. Because what I know is I know this is the best day ever. And I claim tomorrow as the best day ever. And I claim the day after that as the best day ever. I live in this continuous stream of most amazing days. because it is in this most amazing day that I feel and experience the oneness of life. And I nurture that. I cradle that in my heart. That deep knowing that it's all one. It's all good. And everything is happening exactly as it must for the highest and the best of my life and of all life, of every life. So no matter what I call it, God's got this. And so I'm grateful for that. And I just let it be. I let go. I release this word into the law, and I know it is done. And so it is. Amen.
Thank you, my brother, and thank you guys for spending time with us today, for spending time with us this past week. For those that are part of the Mindshift Mastery Program, and we are opening that Mindshift Mastery Program to anyone who wants to participate. We're going to make this an ongoing fundraiser, not just for Eunice and Billy, but for everybody that we run across who might be in need of funds. It might be the Orlando fundraising right now. It might be somebody that we run across who can't pay their rent or their utilities or whatever. We're just going to open this up because the expression of gratitude I'm getting back from you guys about how this is creating changes in your life, changes in your business, changes in your relationships, just makes me feel like this will be something we do for the long haul, and it will gradually move, I think, more and more into the Inner Alchemy program itself. While the weekly focus is going to be on entrepreneurism, our Friday focus will always be on more spiritual topics. But really, there's no way to tease one out of the other because these are part of who we are as a community that's coming together. So anyway, thank you for being here. Thank you for your kind thoughts and for your continued work that you do. And I challenge you to spend the next 30 days working a little bit harder on yourself. Let's just redouble our commitment to work on us, to forgive ourselves, to tease out those things that are that are not love in our lives, the chaotic data on the subconscious hard drive of our minds, of our subconscious minds. Let's just tease out that chaotic data and eliminate it and replace it with love, because that's all there really is. And know that I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thanks for being here today. Thank you, Robert. Welcome back. We'll have Robert for another week before he has to run off to get moving, but then we'll have him back when he's down in Colorado. And I will talk to you guys on Monday. This will continue on the same channel, same place. And thank you. Namaste, everybody.
Namaste. Peace and blessings.